Hi, fellow female activists. Your wellness coach, Cathy here. And hello to anyone who's new. This is our wellness playlist. And if you're new, then you get to experience for the first time our positive quotient repetitions. Positive quotient repetitions or PQ reps. We start our wellness and recommendation playlist with this, and it's a way to drop back into our bodies and make sure that our minds and our bodies are connected. So, if you feel safe, you can close your eyes. You don't have to, but you can be laying down, sitting down. It's all up to you. Meanwhile, hopefully, you are in a private space, and again, you feel safe. Regardless if you're whatever position you're in, go ahead and think about a nice tall spine. Roll your shoulders back and let your hands fall to the side there. I'm going to close my eyes, and what we're going to do is you're going to just notice the breath as you inhale and exhale through your nose. See if you can notice right underneath your nostrils, right? There's that little part right before your lip. See if you can, and don't concentrate too hard on it. Just you're noticing your breath, but what you're trying to notice in particular is the actual air coming in and out of only your nose. Okay, so here we go. Now, you don't necessarily have to keep only nostril breathing, but go ahead and take two fingertips and start to rub them with such intention that you can feel your fingertip ridges. Can you maybe feel your fingerprint? What sensations are you feeling? Then go ahead if you're able and notice the furthest away sound you can hear. Now, listen to the closest sound you can hear. And when you're ready, go ahead and blink your eyes open if they're closed, and welcome back. So, those are positive quotient repetitions, and they help you remember that your brain is connected to your body. It's imperative to understand that. The medical field for like forever, unfortunately, and only maybe in the last few decades have realized that no, our bodies are not detached from our heads. And so mental health is, in fact, physical health, right? But as of yet, they're still seen as two separate entities, unfortunately, but they're not. They're quite important. So today, we are in our sleep pillar, and we are talking about actually well, in my case, my decision that I'm going to be in jumping into getting a futon, specifically, that's going to be hopefully that was made or at least authentically created originally in Tokyo or Japan, but that hopefully, if I'm going to time this right, would be actually shipped from here in the States. Regardless of where you're at in the world, if you are aware and not under a rock in 2026, then you know that right now the US is basically pissing the entire world off. And that's not inflammatory statement, it is the truth. And so, nonetheless, even though I am a freedom fighter and have been all my life and want to see this regime end as quickly as possible, I know it's going to take decades. Nonetheless, we get to sleep, and that is such an important part of our, being human. And I wanted to share with you my decision finally that I'm going to take on is to finally, um, what Japanese people have known, and I believe Chinese people, right? Those civilizations are ancient, and they've been sleeping on the floor since the beginning, right? So if they can do it and they're hanging out and being awesome, then I can do so too. So I wanted to share. Um, from actually, I have to admit, I saw this on someone else's YouTube channel, and I'm very grateful because I think that it makes a lot of sense that if you want to have, hopefully you can see that, basically better health, then sleep is a big part of it. And I will take ancient wisdom any day over any silly fad that's happening in the year of 2026. So what you're seeing here, it's Futon Tokyo is the company that was being uh, on the video that I was watching on YouTube. They were explaining how they, were in contact and collab with this particular company. But I really do like the fact that for better for worse, you can see here that there's a sale going on. But what caught my eye at least was that even though this is obviously um, authentically made, I can get it here in the States. Now, I am not afraid to pay tariffs on stuff that's coming into the country. I mean, I'm willing to pay because obviously it's helping that country, right? Like in other words, I'm going out of my way to buy stuff in Canada. Yes, I'm going to pay tariffs, but you know what? I'd rather be funding Canadian companies right now, to be honest. So, nonetheless, um, what I wanted to share is my little reason why, not little, but it's been a little road to get here. So again, futons, right, are quite awesome. They're ancient and something to think about. Now, uh, there are many reasons, I'm sure, in the culture that Japanese people prefer, futons. But one reason is simply the fact that, there might not be a lot of space. And so they use futons because you can roll them up and then you can use that space for whatever else you need it for. In other words, if you have a small space, which is quite common, right? Especially in the bigger cities like Tokyo and, all those like Fukusai, like whatever different cities you have there, Hiroshima and all these other ones, right? There's not a lot of space to begin with. So they have to utilize whatever space they have and use it in multi-purpose ways, right? In my case, I have a small bedroom, and so it doesn't make sense for me to, like, I had gone to a foldable, what I thought was a futon, but actually, right, that still was off the floor. And then it took me actually having, unfortunately, this past January, I did experience a pretty doozy of a anxiety episode, so much so that I ended up in the ER. And then 3 days later, I was experiencing what was probably another anxiety episode coming up. But I called the nurse's line, and then thank goodness, because of my experience, right, knowledge of what it feels like to have an anxiety episode, I figured, you know what? I have a feeling maybe this is me just having high anxiety. So instead of going back to the first time I went to the ER for big reasons, and it probably was just an anxiety episode, but I'm glad I went. Okay, so put that aside. But 3 days later, which was a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, I was experiencing similar symptoms, but just not as heavy. And so I ended up sleeping on the floor that night. I talked to the nurse line. They gave me their advice. I decided to stay home, at least, for the time being. I ended up being well. Thank you for that. But what I did, I realized I'm like, I need to ground myself. And because my bed was not very comfortable anymore, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just roll up my yoga mats and I am going to sit upright. I was using yoga blocks, everything else. But basically, I ended up going down on the floor and I did sleep. And I was so grateful. And then I thought to myself, well, hell, again, if the Japanese and Chinese and all kinds of other, Asian communities have been using floor sleeping for centuries, I think maybe I can try it too. So I'm going to use this company, and then I probably won't make it for the April 20th sale, but nonetheless, I plan to use this company because they seem pretty awesome. And again, if I can at least save a little bit of money and sustainability, right? Not that I would mind having it come from Japan, but the problem is, how long is it going to take to get here, right? And again, I don't put blame on any of the international companies at all. What I'm saying is that if I can, I will try to save a little money. In this case, obviously, when it's time for me to go ahead and make the purchase, I would prefer using this company because they do have apparently a factory that they ship to here. So at least when I am ready and able, I will be getting an authentic futon that I'll, give it a go. But it won't be coming for so far away. So that's my take on that. But I wanted to share that because, again, it came out of a necessity that I wasn't necessarily, I actually knew, again, I'm a wellness coach, so I find all these different facts out, right? Sleeping on the floor is actually really awesome. Okay. Now, again, I had what I thought was a futon. That was silly to think, but it's a fold-away little couch, right? And I got it at IKEA many moons ago. But obviously, it's lower than most beds, right? In this instance, I need to replace it, and I just hadn't yet. And then obviously I ended up in the ER this past January, and that wasn't fun. But then, like I said, 3 days later, I ended up experiencing what quite literally was just an anxiety, not just, but it was an anxiety episode. And so to help myself get grounded, like I literally realized I'm like, oh crap, if I don't want to end up in the ER, I get to take proper precautions. And so where do I feel grounded? When I'm practicing yoga, right? So I do remember that night and it was the middle of the night. It was like 11:30 when this happened. So I laid out my yoga mats and then I actually decided I go, well, I'm obviously not going to be able to sleep right away. So I basically ended up using my favorite yoga nidra video on YouTube. And that's what finally got me to calm down enough so that I did go back into a parasympathetic state. And then I was finally able to sleep. It wasn't the best sleep, mind you. It was quite fitful here and there, but I still at least didn't end up in the ER again. And I have been since then sleeping on the floor. So I figured, well, I better upgrade because while, right, sleeping on the floor is awesome, we need at least to have enough cushion, right? So that we don't end up with pressure points, right? You know, on a futon, those mattresses, how ancient, Japanese figured this out, I have no idea, but they figured out how to make these what we consider mattresses, you know, comfy enough, for lack of a better word, just so that yes, we're having the benefit of being firmly on the floor and our bodies are supported so that we don't have pressure points. Um, I am definitely of the mindset that the less I consume, the better off the world is, right? And so I had toyed with the idea of getting a more modern type bed, but I'm like, you know what? No. If I'm sleeping on the floor now and I'm still having issues simply just because obviously I wake up and, parts of my body are numb because again, I'm sleeping on the hard floor, even though I have a few mats. But obviously, if ancient wisdom has been around for like centuries that sleeping on a futon works. Guess what? I can give it a go. All right. I would ask any of you listening, do you have futons? And if so, what do you think about them? Like put in the comments, what are the, what I would suggest could be, pros or cons. And just let me know what you think of them. Again, I want to be as authentic as possible. So I'm hoping that I can, again, use that particular company and come away with something that it's going to be fun and hopefully very useful to my wonderful body. But I'm here to help you realize that our bodies, again, they don't require a lot of external, um, what you would call things, okay? What we require is internal out support. So my sleep is paramount. And if I can get better sleep, then I will do so. But I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars and just consume, consume, consume to achieve what my body can do naturally. I am still sleeping, okay? It's not always, the best sleep, but I am sleeping. And so now I'm just trying to upgrade a little, right? So that my body gets the best experience and so that I sleep better, but with less around me. Meaning I don't need to buy a supersized king, California king bed, get the highest level technology mattress. It would be fun, I guess, but that is materials that I don't need to sleep. I don't want to put in a landfill, 20 years from now. The futon would be made of mostly natural materials. And so it will decompose a lot faster, right? And hell, like I said, if the Japanese have been sleeping on the floor for centuries, I think I can try it too. So with that, your sleep is paramount. The better sleep you get, the more longevity you're going to experience just overall, okay? Your energy will be experiential simply because your body has rejuvenated overnight the way it's supposed to. So with that, I hope that the next time we talk that I can tell you that I have a new futon, but we'll see. Either way, I will be getting one. And I hope that you will give me any recommendations about your futons, okay? As well, every end of the month on my YouTube channel here, we go live and I host a live yoga flow. And usually it's at 12 p.m. PT. So hopefully that will happen live. Sometimes it gets taped, but nonetheless, I hope to be live in the next week. So we'll see you then. Until next time, take care and take charge.